Hey everybody, this is Paul from Hunt's Photo Education. Here to talk to you today a little bit about how the paper that you are using for printing affects the mood of your photo. To start off, you have to remember that we're talking about printing. We're making, whether it be a 4x6 print, 5x7 print, all the way up to a 20x30 inch print, you have to print it. And the printed image is in itself a completely different entity. And I want to make sure that everyone remembers that printing is basically how we always used to see the end result. So I think it's really important for people to print their images. First off, printing your images is going to really show all of the successes and flaws that your image has, which will in turn make you a better photographer. In addition to that, they can be very impressive no matter what size you're printing. So I strongly encourage you to really think about printing your images and really kind of just print some 5x7s, some 8x10s, some 11x14s. Bring them to Hunt's to have them printed because we can do a really fabulous job. Or if you can print them on your own, obviously, this is kind of what we're talking about with regard to that. So what I've done is I've taken a series of prints that we have actually had printed here at Hunt's Photo, and they're in our classroom, and I've taken them off the wall to kind of just show you some of the different examples of why you would want to use different papers and what mood they're going to project when they're printed. The images are normally up on our walls here, and they're actually mounted onto foam core, which is not always the best way to do it, but we do it because we can take them off the walls and kind of toss them around, and they do look somewhat impressive when they're mounted like this. So image number one is our image of, this is printed on the MOAB Juniper paper, and it's a picture of downtown Providence. And this is what I would consider to be kind of like a bread and butter sort of paper, like one of the first papers that I usually go to. This Juniper paper is a glossy style paper, so it kind of has a little bit of tooth to it and a little bit of roughness. It is a lusterish sort of paper, and it's a good all-purpose paper. You know, it's going to show a lot of the detail in there. It's got some nice rich blacks. By all means, this is an excellent starting paper, and I use it all the time. So if I'm not sure what to put something on, the MOAB Juniper paper is an excellent paper to start off with. I don't think I've ever printed something on the MOAB Juniper paper and said, well, geez, I'd much rather print it on this, or it looks bad. But why would you go to something beyond just this? So, example number two, we have a picture like this, which is printed on the MOAB Entrada paper, and the MOAB Entrada paper is a matte paper. And say what you will about matte papers, I think matte papers really look awesome. They do not have any reflectivity to them, so they just kind of absorb light as they hit them. Nothing bounces back to you like a gloss paper will. Excellent for picking up textures, excellent for black and white, excellent for images that have a little bit of contrast. So this is really a great example of why you would want to print on a matte paper. And again, that MOAB Entrada paper is excellent for that. Why would you want to print something on a glossy instead of on a matte paper? So start thinking about some of the reasons and some of the emotions that kind of come with the taking of the image and the printing of the image. So as an example, something like this print right here, which is taken at Garwin Falls. It's basically, you know, a series of waterfalls, and they're kind of coming down to this little pond at the bottom. We put it onto the Canson Platine paper, which is very similar to the MOAB Juniper paper in the sense that it's a glossy paper and it has reflectivity to it, and it's really going to kind of bounce back. And we've got water here, so water is naturally reflective. So we're kind of adding into the element of, well, this is a naturally reflective surface, so having that kind of bounce back, having that kind of push back towards the viewer is going to kind of doubly emphasize that. So similarly, I think the same thing about a paper like this. So this is the MOAB Juniper textured paper, And this is an image that has a lot of textures in it. It is also a matte paper, so it's going to also not have reflectivity, but the fact that it's got that added level of texture in it kind of adds to the effect of the scraped up frog pond that is being skated upon right here, and also the movement of the people and the trees in the background with the lights. This is really going to add to your end result when you're using a textured paper. We'll talk more about textured papers in another video. This is a great paper to use if you're looking for something that has a little bit of extra character to it. When we look at an image like this is also a picture of water. And so we could say, well, why wouldn't we put this on a glossy paper? And you absolutely can. And this might look excellent on a glossy paper. But the fact that a lot of that water kind of has this sort of long exposure, misty sort of effect, teamed with the rocks in it, I feel gives it a little bit more character when you're utilizing a matte paper for something like this. Similarly, when we're looking at an image like this that has a lot of brick and stone in the background and leaves on the ground and a lot of really interesting textures on her, using a matte paper is going to doubly emphasize that. I always love printing on matte paper when I have something that really takes you back in time. And so an image like this from Old Sturbridge Village, which is a living history museum in Western Mass, is an excellent example of when to use matte paper because, again, going back in time to the 1800s and thinking about the textures involved and the woodworking involved and some of the outfits, matte paper, in my mind, fits a little bit better for something like that. And then sometimes matte paper just isn't the right thing for it, and putting it onto a glossy paper like this one, which is on the Juniper Baryta paper again, adding that extra level of contrast in your image. The Paramount sign here, the bus going by, the bright colored lights. Having a glossy paper is really going to, again, emphasize it and really punch it a little bit more than a matte paper would. For all those reasons, there are a variety of different papers that you can use that are going to emphasize different moods for what you're trying to accomplish. And we only skim the surface on what we're talking about here. I basically have shown you 3 or 4 different paper styles, and in the grand scheme of things, there are probably 100 different papers that can be used that all have minor intricacies and just a little bit different on how you can use them and what they're going to be used for. I would encourage you all to kind of try different papers, whether you're printing on your own or you're printing at Hunt's Photo. We have a lot of different options available. We'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth about some other types of papers, such as textured papers, different glossy papers, different matte papers in the future, but strongly encourage, think about it from a mood perspective. What works for your image? Appreciate you watching this video. My name's Paul, Hunt's Photo Education. Look forward to seeing you again soon.